Greetings and welcome to another Stompy 51 miniature adventure, where this time we mash up a deep and distant Jurassic past and some Triceratopses heavily armed for the future with some GCPS kit-bashed Mantic troopers who I'm going to be using as corporate security guards.
And what tells you that I've been watching Dune 2 on cinema release recently? There's nothing wrong with being a Harkonnen, dressed in black as they are and shaven-headed. So this miniature is actually a GCPS Mantic Marine of some kind, just a basic human gump, except I thought the heads were unprepossessing, and so I left them off, and I happen to have in my bits box some statuesque miniatures, human heads, and statuesque make heads in different sizes, but I didn't really understand that when I bought them. The heads are kind of GW compatible scale, like a heroic scale, and then like a standard historical 28mm type scale that would be compatible with, I suppose, those cobblestone casting sculpts or artisan miniatures sculpts. But I hadn't had a chance to use them for years because most of my miniatures are slightly more heroic scale, and I thought these would be great because these guys are supposed to be Mazon security guards, and if Mazon Labs is an evil corporate, I'm sure that amongst the many things I've been fiddling about with will have been cloning technologies. And so in the same way as you've got the Bad Batch in Star Wars, well, now you've got these bald-headed women who are all identical twins. When I first started painting these, I thought, crikey, what do I do with them? Because they're actually quite fiddly. And they've got mold lines on them, or just one big mold line, which is very hard to remove because it goes over all that detail. I tried to scrape it off there a bit. And I just thought, this is going to take me a long time to do and not be that rewarding. And I won't be that good at it because my painting style isn't really suited to very pernickety, fiddly little bits. I tend to look at things in a more broad brush kind of approach, literally, with lots of overbrushing. And then I remembered something I'd seen on Uncle Adam's, is he Tabletop Minions YouTube channel, where he actually spoke about this once, and he said with near future uniforms or modern military uniforms, yes, they've got loads of bits hanging off them, knee pads and knives and pouches and straps. But he said, but the reality is these things are all the same color because they want to kind of blend in, usually for camouflage. And I thought, well, why can't that be the case for these? And like looking at them, they don't really align with my normal painting style because, as you can see, they almost look a bit more store miniatures-y, where they don't want to spend too much time, they're going to get knocked about a bit, and they just need to look all right from 3 feet away on a tabletop. But I thought, what's wrong with that here? Maybe I'll just do the same thing. But then I thought they're black, so they're going to be, the uniforms are black, and that's not very exciting. And I remember going into a Games Workshop many, many years ago when I was a mere lad of about 14, and I was painting the wheels of some futuristic dwarf trike. And the guy said, look, don't highlight them in grey, it looks very boring. Just add a bit of blue and keep adding in a lighter blue, because when the sun glints off certain kinds of black, it's got a bluish tinge. And although I'm not convinced that's true, it does add a bit of colour's the wrong word, but it's definitely better than black. And so that's what I've done here. And when I initially did it, I thought these look awful. But then as I painted the guns and the skin, it started growing on me that these could be plausible. And certainly after they're based, they look perfectly all right. They do look very special ops, and they do look slightly non-state actor, because you assume that they would be wearing some kind of camouflage. They do look like the corporation. The bald ladies are the Mazon security guards, but the blokes, or whatever they are Abana Blackwing Marines, and they're a kind of a better kind of minion of the Mazon Labs Corporation, but their heads are from the Gates of Antares plastic box sets, which, you know, were fantastic, really fantastic miniatures. And I'd be interested in your views on whether the heads scale okay, because I don't know if it's because they're slightly bigger than the standard heads, or if because they basically then come with necks.
That'll give you a sense of what they looked like when I was at the earlier kit bashing stage. Yeah, you see there, I did try and stick a bit of green stuff underneath there to give him a bit of a sense of neck. And they already had kind of an inbuilt neck.
But I think they look all right. And so these are Abana Blackwing Marines, weight of fire 1. So they kind of make you keep your head down. I think it's a reroll a dice that's missed. And one of them can be an engineer. And that would be this fellow, obviously. And that unlocks having a load of TAC drones, which is quite cool. So these guys are one grouping. And he looks quite cool with his kind of cowl. And again, I thought for a bit of interest I painted red because it didn't look quite right when it was black. Albeit it probably would be. But you know, it's dark and you won't be able to see what's going on. And you can also see, in the spirit of just getting on with it, I just left that. I scraped down the mold line, but it still seemed to be visible. And I thought, you know what? 3 feet away, who will notice? And he looks all right anyway. Fighting for the corporation. So they're in one group. Then you need to have a leader for all of these people. And there's Dr. Gail Simmons, who has quite a funky special leadership skill whereby she can render any security guard, the bald girls, or these Blackwing Marines, faster by +1 for a round, or give them +1 die to an assault or shoot action, which means you'll really be piling in the dice for that particular person, given that, you know, if you're higher than someone or they're out of cover and you're shooting at them, you get extra dice anyway. So I thought to myself, what miniature can I use? She just comes with a pistol and is basically a medic. And I thought to myself, I haven't played Malifaux for more than 10 years. And this is McMorning, a body snatcher, a 19th century body snatcher. But, you know, crazed medics don't change in the future. And he looks sufficiently insane and of the right scale for these guys. Fits in just fine, you know, he's a bit of a tall fellow. But that's why he's got a bit of a god complex, you know, he just looks down on people a bit. With his evil cackle, and if you believe this to be an evil corporation, what's wrong with that?
And it actually kind of reminded me of this weird 1979 film I remember seeing when I was younger, about how H.G. Wells pursues Jack the Ripper, who manages to grab a time machine and arrive in like 1980s New York, where he just comes out and he looks around and goes, crikey, this is amazing. You know, this is a total dump, dark alley kind of town where crime is rampant, and obviously the bad guy gets caught. So, you know, McMorning, he's managed to time travel into the deep, dark future, and now is a leading light of the evil corporation with all the resources of it at his quite creepy disposal.
And then I thought of something that Jerry said on the Some Dude on YouTube Discord chat, where they go through a lot of the videos that people upload, or projects that people upload onto on tabletop. Because he saw in one of my videos that I'd mentioned that I treat Deadzone as a miniatures agnostic game, even though it isn't supposed to be. They've got their own proprietary miniatures. And he just shared his wider thoughts that actually every game is a miniatures agnostic game because you can use whatever you want. My view is, well, at some point, you know, you can't use a 3D printed Care Bear as a Space Marine. I mean, you can because, well, of course you can do anything really, it's yours. But, you know, there are still limits of my imagination. And it reminds me of that discussion that people always have, you know, is this art? And my view is, well, yes, anything is art. It's just not necessarily good art. And here's Jerry.
I like this. He does make one mistake, though, in it, where he goes, Deadzone is not a miniature agnostic game. And once again, I'll say it is. Every game's miniature agnostic. Nobody's going to come around your house and tell you can't play the game because you're not using the right miniatures. I would suggest people start referring to games that have specific miniatures instead. You know, there is a range of miniatures for this game. You don't have to use them. You know, I don't have to use my GCPS as GCPS. I could use some of the Ura or Bulldogs or anything else I want to replace them, or even my Night City patrol of Shivers from Slay Industries. So, yes, people need to lose this notion that games aren't miniature agnostic. Just because a range of miniatures exists doesn't mean you have to use it.
Maybe
It might be the easiest way.
They should be just a note saying official supported tournament only with these models.
Oh,
and that's
yeah.
all. Because it boils down
care
to
about that.
If you play with your friends, you can play with any miniature you like.
Yeah, or even no miniatures at all. You just use little wooden tubes. What you call those? Little wooden cylinders like meeples. Just move them around. It's all fine.
But there you go. And these guys will be accompanied by the Crust of All, an agile beast stealthy creature with poison fangs and a web spinner on a 60mm base that basically is an agile close combat specialist. You may recognize this miniature from Warhammer Fantasy Battle as a Night Goblin spider from the Battle of Skull Pass box set, of which in my time I've had 2 sets, but got rid of the spiders because I thought they were awful, albeit that was before I realised you could just put a bit of green stuff on the head and paint them with modern paints, and this looks quite fun now. And the weird kind of skull on the back, whilst never really realistic for a natural spider captured by night goblins, is perfectly in keeping with an evil corporation carrying out weird experiments on creatures. But that is not all. No, that is not all, as they say in Dr. Seuss. Because over this bank holiday weekend, with an hour here and an hour there between various chores and duties and little excursions with little people, I had time to paint up these Teratons for the rebel faction, because every evil corporate needs to have some kind of anti-corporate heroic faction to fight it in this slightly Marxist take on Mantic's future in Deadzone. And these are 3D sculpts by Treadhead Rad. They're great fun. I think they're basically designed to be Ogryn proxies, but I had fun using them as rebel Teratons who have ceremonial blades, grenade launchers, obviously close combat specialists, but comically just teleport randomly into the enemy in places that they least expect. I decided not to go for any weird kind of red or blue colours for the skin. I just thought it looked too weird. I did paint one blue and it doesn't look right. Whereas grey obviously looks a bit elephanty. And who knows what colour these really were. I did a bit of fun Googling and couldn't find what colours people think these were, because I don't think any flesh has survived. But grey does make them look a bit more realistic. I'm starting to wonder how interested I am in 3D prints, because although they let you have really cool stuff like this, I think that these are very fragile. Not that they should be dropped, but if I did drop them, I mean, that tail is going to get snapped at some point. It seems reasonably robust. But then again, I suppose, are resin miniatures actually that robust? And someone did kindly point out to me in one of my other YouTube videos when I mentioned this, that you can change the consistency of the different resins that you use. And I gave all the information to the guy who does the printing for me, and he said, well, it'll cost 3 times as much as these. But anyway, so I think what I'll do is I will stick to 3D prints for things that you really can't get or are just would be ridiculously expensive. Like, even Ogrins, these were like £3-4 a shot. But they would be £12 or £15 if they were some kind of plastic GW miniature, and no doubt a lot more if they were resin. So I think I'll just have to live with it for things that are quite special and fun like this. But I think for kind of standard human size figures, I'm all plastic and metal these days. And as you'll see from my other videos, I have a bit of a current penchant for single piece metal miniatures from the 90s. I painted these trying to keep them high level. I didn't want to spend weeks and weeks on them. These were done in the space of a few hours. So even things that you would have thought don't necessarily need weathering because these are supposed to be elegant and futuristic, I just used washes and rust to just rub my finger over the metals, and then dabbed metallics, lighter sort of tone metallics, to kind of make it look like this has really smashed a lot of people's faces in and not really been maintained that well, just because I couldn't be bothered to kind of keep doing edge highlighting to any particular degree. And nothing is more than 3 or 4 levels of highlights. I probably could have kept going with the trousers, but again, I thought to myself, you've got to know when to draw a line, and I'm trying to keep them look Neo-Soviet aligned, to keep in with my cobblestone Neo-Soviets, because my rebel faction has a load of these stalker near-future Neo-Sov miniatures, and so I didn't want to paint these so they look too kind of American or Guardians of the Galaxy, and so I thought I would have a go at that amoeba pattern uniform that the Soviet scouts had, albeit I haven't got it right because I don't think it was this densely amoebid. But you know what? So what? It looks just fine.
But sometimes perfection is the enemy of the possible, which is not a great approach to take if you're trying to get through painting a humongous miniatures collection. So, keep well, keep safe, and by all means, leave any thoughts you want to for me to reply to.